And if the collective refuses to acknowledge this compact? Vrax asked, his tone suggesting he already knew the answer. That would be unwise, the curator replied mildly. The safeguards embedded in your civilization's foundational technologies would activate. The consequences would be regrettable. Reeves studied the holographic entity carefully. You've been watching us. The Prometheus team detected your presence during the first engagement. Yes, the curator acknowledged. Your species' approach to consciousness technology integration is unique. Most either retain separation between mind and machine, or surrender biological consciousness entirely to technological evolution. Your hybrid path was unexpected. Selith stepped forward, her diplomatic training reasserting itself. If the ancient compact is invoked, what does this mean for relations between humanity and the collective? That, the curator said, is for you to determine. But it must be on terms of equality, not subordination. Humanity has earned its place among the stellar community, not through age or accumulated technology, but through innovation and ethical responsibility in the face of tremendous power. As the implications of this revelation settled over the gathering, Reeves allowed herself a small smile. The gamble of Project Thunderclap had paid off, though not in any way she could have predicted. Humanity had not just defended itself, it had changed the rules of engagement entirely. I believe, she said, addressing the collective delegation, that we should return to our diplomatic discussions. But this time, as equals with much to learn from each other. Observer Nix inclined at shifting features in what might have been respect. Indeed, Commander, it seems the collective has as much to learn from humanity as we presume to teach. The curator's holographic form began to fade. I will observe, as is my function. The path forward is yours to determine. Remember that technology without wisdom is merely power without purpose. Humanity's integration of both is why you stand here now. As the entity disappeared, Reeves gazed out at the stars visible through the viewport. The disabled collective fleet was beginning to regain power as the thunderclap effect dissipated. But they would reawaken to a changed reality, one where humanity had earned its place not through brute force, but through the unique combination of technological innovation and ethical restraint that defined their species. Dr. Chen, she said quietly, please inform the Prometheus team and the Thunderclap volunteers that they can stand down, and send a message to Earth. Tell them, she paused, considering her words carefully. Tell them that humanity has found its voice among the stars, and the galaxy, it seems, is finally ready to listen. As the collective representatives began tentative discussions about new diplomatic frameworks, Reeves reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. The UES reckoning had been built as a weapon, humanity's defiant statement against a universe that seemed determined to limit their potential. But perhaps its true purpose had been what its name suggested all along, not an instrument of destruction, but of reckoning. A means of accounting, of setting things right, of finding proper balance. In the depths of the ship, the volunteers who had linked their minds with the Prometheus system shared a collective dream as they recovered, a vision of possibilities that stretched beyond the physical limitations of their current existence. Not transcendence as the precursors had defined it, perhaps, but the first steps on a path uniquely human. Evolution's children, finding their own way forward among the stars. On a tactical level, what was happening was relatively straightforward. The distributed consciousness of Project Thunderclap was generating interference patterns precisely tuned to the weaknesses of each collective vessel, weaknesses identified during the previous battle and expanded upon through intensive analysis. But on a deeper level, something unprecedented was occurring. The merged human consciousness, amplified through technology, but fundamentally organic in its source, was demonstrating problem-solving capabilities that neither pure artificial intelligence nor individual biological minds could achieve. It was evolution itself given technological expression. Adaptation at its most profound. We're not attacking your ships, Reeves explained quietly. We're simply suggesting to their systems that they might function better if they rested for a while. The effect is temporary and completely reversible. Observer Nix turned to face her fully. This is impossible. The neural coordination required for such precise manipulation across interplanetary distances exceeds even Category 1 civilizations. Perhaps, Reeves acknowledged, or perhaps your categories are fundamentally flawed. Perhaps technological development isn't linear at all, but contextual, shaped by the unique history and character of each species. As they spoke, a new signal appeared on the communication systems. It originated not from the disabled suppression fleet, nor from any human vessel, but from the edge of the system. Commander, Lieutenant Quan reported via comlink, "We're receiving a transmission on frequencies we've never encountered before. It's targeting the collective protocols specifically." "Put it through," Reeves ordered. A new presence filled the communication system. Neither voice nor text, but pure information structured in ways that hinted at thought patterns utterly alien yet somehow familiar. The ship's AI struggled to translate it into forms human and collective senses could comprehend. When it finally resolved, the message was simple. The test is concluded. Humanity has demonstrated sufficient potential. Collective interference is no longer authorized under the ancient compact. Observer Nex's posture changed dramatically, the shrouded figure seeming to collapse in on itself before straightening with a new rigidity that suggested alarm. "Observer," Vrax inquired uncertainly, "what is this message? What ancient compact?" Instead of answering, Nix turned to Reeves. "You have no idea what you've done, Commander. No idea what you've awakened." "Perhaps you might enlighten us," Reeves suggested, her tone making it clear this wasn't merely a request. After a moment of apparent internal struggle, Nix reached up and removed the mask of the environmental suit. The face revealed was nothing like Reeves had expected, neither insectoid like Vrax, nor humanoid like Seleth, but something that defied easy categorization. Its features seemed to shift subtly, as if struggling to maintain a fixed form. "The collective," Nix said in a voice that no longer needed translation, "is not the oldest power in the galaxy. Long before our founding species achieved spaceflight, the precursors established what you might call guidelines for cosmic development. The ancient compact is their legacy, a set of principles designed to nurture species with particular potential." "Potential for what?" Dr. Chen asked. "Transcendence," Nix replied simply. "The precursors believed that consciousness itself could evolve beyond physical limitations. They established tests, subtle interventions designed to identify species capable of making this evolutionary leap. And the collective's role in this?" Reeves pressed. "We were meant to be guides, not gatekeepers," Nix admitted with what might have been shame. "To challenge promising species, yes, but not to suppress them. Over millennia, the original purpose was distorted. Because the collective feared being supplanted," Reeves concluded. "You became so invested in maintaining your position in the galactic hierarchy that you forgot your true purpose." Vrax's harmonic tones expressed clear distress. "Observer, the Directorate has never shared this information. If what you say is true." "It is," confirmed a new voice as a holographic presence materialized in the center of the room. The beam's form was indistinct, more suggestion than substance, but it radiated an awareness that made even Reeves, a veteran of the Prometheus system, feel small. "I am Curator," the entity introduced itself, "observer of the precursor legacy. Humanity's demonstration of consciousness technology integration has activated protocols dormant for thousands of years. The ancient compact is clear. Species that achieve such integration without self-destruction must be allowed to develop without interference." "There is no need for alarm, Commander," Vrax said, his harmonic tones shifting to what analysts had identified as smug satisfaction. "That would be the collective suppression fleet arriving as scheduled. You came here under a flag of diplomatic negotiation," Reeves said, anger evident in her voice despite her control. "And we are negotiating," Seleth replied smoothly. But the Directorate believed a more substantial presence might help emphasize the seriousness of our position. Reeves activated her neural link to the ship's systems, receiving a tactical update directly. What she saw sent a chill through her. Not 12 ships this time, but 50, including 3 massive vessels that dwarfed even the Collective's dreadnoughts. World breakers, Nix said, noting her expression. Capable of rendering a planet uninhabitable in minutes. The Directorate rarely deploys them, but your demonstration at Proxima Centauri was concerning. Reeves maintained her composure despite the implicit threat. If you believe that Mike makes right, observer, then you've learned nothing from our previous encounter. Technology is not merely about scale, but about application, about innovation. She turned to Dr. Chen. Escort our guests to the observation lounge. I believe they should witness what happens next. On the bridge, the tactical display painted a grim picture. The suppression fleet was deploying in a spherical formation that would allow them to engage targets in any direction, a standard tactic when overwhelming force was available. Status of the Prometheus team, Reeves asked as she took her command chair. Recovered and ready, Commander, Jackson reported. But even with the system at full capacity, 50 ships including world breakers, he left the implication hanging. We're not going to engage them conventionally, Reeves said. Signal the colony. Initiate Project Thunderclap. A ripple of surprise went through the bridge crew. Thunderclap had been theoretical until now, a distributed Prometheus system linking not just the volunteers aboard the Reckoning, but hundreds of specially trained operators on the colony below. Commander, Lieutenant Quan said hesitantly, Thunderclap hasn't been field tested. The neural load across that many participants cold. I'm aware of the risks, Lieutenant, Reeves interrupted gently. As are the volunteers. But we need to demonstrate to the Collective that humanity isn't just another species to be guided or suppressed. Sometimes a decisive display of capability is the only path to lasting peace. As preparations for Thunderclap began, Dr. Chen led the Collective delegation to the observation lounge, where they could witness events unfold. The massive viewports provided an unobstructed view of space, where the incoming suppression fleet was now visible as points of light growing steadily brighter. You cannot hope to prevail against such force, Vrax said, his confidence returning as he gazed at the approaching armada. The Collective has never deployed a fleet of this scale against a Category 3 civilization. The Directorate must consider humanity a significant threat indeed. A compliment, in its way, Reeves replied, joining them in the lounge. But you continue to evaluate us by your standards, Arkin. That has been your mistake from the beginning. Observer Nix turned toward her, the featureless mask of the environmental suit revealing nothing of the being within. What do you intend, Commander Reeves? Even your impressive Prometheus system cannot overcome such numerical superiority. You're right, Reeves acknowledged, which is why we're not using just the Prometheus system. At that moment, a subtle vibration passed through the ship as the Thunderclap protocol activated. On the colony below, hundreds of trained volunteers linked into a distributed neural network, their combined consciousness flowing through quantum-entangled pathways that bypassed conventional communication limitations. The effect wasn't immediately visible, but sensors throughout the system began registering anomalies, fluctuations in local space-time, quantum field disturbances that propagated in patterns no algorithm could predict. What is happening? Demanded Seleth, her typical melodious tones sharpening with alarm. Humanity's response, Reeves said simply. The approaching suppression fleet suddenly faltered, their precisely coordinated formation dissolving into confusion. Ships veered off course, some powering down completely, others spinning helplessly as if caught in invisible currents. Impossible, Vrax whispered, watching as the mighty world breakers, the ultimate expression of collective technological supremacy, drifted powerless, their fearsome weapons systems dark. Before we begin, Vrax continued, I must convey the Directorate's formal protest regarding your use of prohibited consciousness integration technology. Such systems are strictly regulated under Collective Protocol 2, which which humanity never agreed to, Reeves interrupted. We cannot violate protocols we didn't consent to. But this kind of technological paternalism is precisely why we're in this situation. Arction. The Tyrellian, Seleth, raised a hand in a placating gesture. Perhaps we might approach this differently. Her voice was melodic, almost hypnotic. Commander, the collective has existed for over 12,000 years. In that time, we have guided dozens of species through the dangerous transitions of technological development. Our protocols exist not to oppress, but to protect. Protect whom? Reeves asked pointedly. Your approach to humanity has been to restrict, demand, and when refused, attack. These are not the actions of benevolent guides. The shrouded figure, Observer Nix, spoke for the first time. Its voice emerged from the environmental suit as a modulated whisper that somehow commanded attention more effectively than a shout. You misunderstand the nature of the threat, Commander Reeves. It is not merely your species we seek to protect, but the fabric of galactic civilization itself. Reeves studied the observer, unable to discern anything about the being beneath the shroud. Explain. There have been others like you, Nix continued. Species that developed along unconventional paths. Species that merged biological and technological evolution too rapidly, without the necessary ethical frameworks to guide them. And what happened to these species? Dr. Chen asked. They are no longer with us, Vrax answered bluntly. Some destroyed themselves. Others threatened galactic stability to such a degree that the collective was forced to intervene decisively. You eliminated them, Reeves translated, her voice hardening. In the most extreme cases, yes, Nix admitted without apparent remorse. But only after all other options were exhausted. What your species demonstrated at Proxima Centauri, the Prometheus system, as you call it, is precisely the kind of technological leap that has preceded catastrophe in the past. Reeves leaned forward. The difference, Observer Nix, is that humanity has been tempering technology with ethics since we first discovered fire. Our history is filled with examples of technological restraint, of choosing not to develop or deploy capabilities that crossed moral boundaries. The fact that we disabled your fleet rather than destroying it should tell you something about our character. One incident is not sufficient evidence of species-wide behavioral patterns, Seleth countered gently. Then perhaps this will be more convincing, Reeves said, nodding to Dr. Chen. The scientist activated a holographic display in the center of the table, showing a detailed technological timeline of human development. We've had the theoretical framework for planet-killing weapons for over a century. We've had the capability to create self-replicating nanomachines that could consume entire worlds for decades. We've understood how to weaponize certain aspects of quantum mechanics in ways that could undermine the fundamental laws of reality. He looked up at the collective representatives. We chose not to develop these technologies beyond proof of concept, not because we lacked the ability, but because we recognized the responsibility that comes with such power. Your protocols didn't guide this restraint. Our own ethical evolution did. A silence fell over the conference table as the collective delegation absorbed this information. Finally, Observer Nix spoke again. If what you say is true, it represents an anomaly in our understanding of technological development patterns. But it does not change the fundamental concern. Your Prometheus system, the melding of human consciousness with machine intelligence, crosses boundaries that have invariably led to disaster in our experience. Perhaps your experience is incomplete, Reeves suggested. Or perhaps humanity represents something new in your long history. Before Nix could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Quan's voice came over the comm system. Commander to the bridge immediately. We have multiple Hawking effect signatures at system edge. Massive displacement patterns. Reeves stood. If you'll excuse me. And in that moment of unprecedented perception, they glimpsed something else, a presence within the collective's network, observing silently, something that wasn't collective at all, but had been watching, waiting for this precise moment when humans would reveal their true potential. Evolution's children. The observation deck of the UES Reckoning had been converted into an impromptu diplomatic chamber. Commander Reeves stood at the viewport, watching as the collective shuttle docked with the airlock. 3 days had passed since the battle at Proxima Centauri. 3 days of tense communication and careful positioning as both sides adjusted to a new reality. "Are you certain this is wise, Commander?" Dr. Chen asked, checking the security protocols on his tablet. "Allowing their delegation aboard after what happened." "Diplomacy is always wise, Doctor," Reeves replied, though her hand rested casually near her sidearm, "especially when backed by the clear ability to defend our interests." The door slid open to admit Archon Vrax and 2 other collective representatives, a Tyrellian diplomat with iridescent skin and a being Reeves didn't recognize, shrouded in an environmental suit that obscured its features. "Commander Reeves," Vrax said, his translator rendering his harmonic speech perfectly. "The collective appreciates your willingness to engage in dialogue." "Dialogue should have been the first approach, not the last resort," Reeves replied evenly. "But we're here now. Please, be seated." The delegation took their places at the conference table. Reeves noted that Vrax's posture had changed significantly since their last encounter, the arrogant confidence replaced by a wariness that bordered on respect. "I am Archon Vrax, as you know," he began formally. "With me is Diplomatic Liaison Seleth of the Tyrellian Concord and Observer Nix of the Directorate." The shrouded figure inclined its head slightly but remained silent. "Before we begin," Vrax continued, "I must convey the Directorate's formal protest regarding your use of prohibited consciousness integration technology. Such systems are strictly regulated under Collective Protocol 2, which humanity never agreed to," Reeves interrupted. "We cannot violate protocols we didn't consent to. But this kind of technological paternalism is precisely why we're in this situation." Archon. The Tyrellian, Seleth, raised a hand in a placating gesture. "Perhaps we might approach this differently." Her voice was melodic, almost hypnotic. "Commander, the collective has existed for over 12,000 years. In that time, we have guided dozens of species through the dangerous transitions of technological development. Our protocols exist not." In the next instant, it was gone, withdrawing so quickly that only the expanded awareness of the Prometheus system had detected it at all. But its brief presence left behind a lingering impression of both ancient intelligence and profound interest. As the volunteers prepared to disengage from the system, they shared a single thought that would later be reported to Commander Reeves. "We are not alone in our resistance. Evolution's children." The observation deck of the UES Reckoning had been converted into an impromptu diplomatic chamber. Commander Reeves stood at the viewport, watching as the collective shuttle docked with the airlock. 3 days had passed since the battle at Proxima Centauri. 3 days of tense communication and careful positioning as both sides adjusted to a new reality. "Are you certain this is wise, Commander?" Dr. Chen asked, checking the security protocols on his tablet. "Allowing their delegation aboard after what happened." "Diplomacy is always wise, Doctor," Reeves replied, though her hand rested casually near her sidearm, "especially when backed by the clear ability to defend our interests." The door slid open to admit Archon Vrax and 2 other collective representatives, a Tyrellian diplomat with iridescent skin and a being Reeves didn't recognize, shrouded in an environmental suit that obscured its features. "Commander Reeves," Vrax said, his translator rendering his harmonic speech perfectly. "The collective appreciates your willingness to engage in dialogue." "Dialogue should have been the first approach, not the last resort," Reeves replied evenly. "But we're here now. Please, be seated." The delegation took their places at the conference table. Reeves noted that Vrax's posture had changed significantly since their last encounter, the arrogant confidence replaced by a wariness that bordered on respect. "I am Archon Vrax, as you know," he began formally. "With me is Diplomatic Liaison Seleth of the Tyrellian Concord and Observer Nix of the Directorate." The shrouded figure inclined its head slightly, but remained silent. "Collective vessels detected," Lieutenant Quan reported. 3 Scout-class ships in high orbit around Proxima. No sign of the main battle group yet. Reeves studied the tactical display. They're likely scouting for planetary defense installations. The colony was supposed to appear civilian on all scans. Commander, interrupted the communications officer, we're picking up distress signals from the colony. The collective scouts have begun atmospheric entry. They're demanding the colony surrender its contraband technologies. What contraband? Chen asked. According to the transmission, all quantum computing systems and neural interface technologies, the officer replied. They claim these are restricted under Collective Protocol 7. Reeves' jaw tightened, a protocol they never shared during negotiations. Convenient. She made her decision quickly. Signal the Indomitable and Thermopylet to maintain position at system edge. We'll handle the scouts. She turned to the tactical officer. Lieutenant Quan, ready kinetic barriers and point defense systems, but keep the Lancet systems powered down. No need to show all our cards in the first hand. Aye, Commander. The Reckoning accelerated toward Proxima, its revolutionary propulsion system allowing it to reach combat velocity without revealing the energy signature of conventional drives. To the collective scouts, it would appear as little more than an asteroid on an unusual trajectory, until it was too late. They've spotted us, reported Quan. Scout vessels breaking from orbit. Scanning us now. Let them look, Reeves said calmly. Helm, bring us into weapons range, but maintained evasive pattern delta. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency as the distance closed. The collective scouts, realizing the Reckoning was no natural object, formed a triangular attack formation, standard procedure according to the limited tactical data Earth had gathered. They're hailing us, said the communications officer. On screen. The view screen activated to show a Vexeri commander, one of the founding species of the collective. The alien's exoskeletal faceplates shifted in what intelligence analysts had identified as an expression of surprise. Human vessel, the Vexeri said, its translator converting complex harmonics into English. You have entered a security operation zone without authorization. Your presence constitutes a violation of collective space. Power down your systems and prepare for boarding. Reeves stood, facing the screen with practiced diplomatic neutrality. This is Commander Ileana Reeves of the United Earth Ship Reckoning. You are orbiting a sovereign human colony and making unauthorized demands of our citizens. It is you who are in violation of recognized boundaries. Withdraw immediately. The Vexeri's faceplates clicked rapidly, their equivalent of derisive laughter. Your species' arrogance exceeds your understanding. Your colony harbors restricted technologies that pose existential risks to regional stability. The collective has determined that humanity is not yet mature enough to target their propulsion systems, Reeves interrupted, nodding to Lieutenant Quan. Disable only. The Vexeri commander continued, unaware that Reeves had muted the transmission. Significant developmental milestones before such technologies can be. Target locked, Quan confirmed. Fire. The Reckoning's conventional weapon systems, railguns accelerating projectiles to a significant fraction of light speed, dispatched precisely calculated rounds. Before the collective vessels could raise their defensive fields, the projectiles struck with pinpoint accuracy, crippling their maneuvering capabilities without causing catastrophic damage. Direct hits on all targets, Quan reported. Their propulsion systems are offline. Reeves reactivated the communication channel. The Vexeri commander was barking orders in its native language, its composure shattered. As I was saying, Reeves continued calmly, withdraw immediately. Your vessels are disabled but intact. We will provide coordinates for an extraction point at the system's edge where your support vessels can retrieve you. The Vexeri's faceplates flattened against its skull, a sign of shock or possibly fear. This action constitutes an act of war against the Nexus Collective. You cannot comprehend the forces you are provoking. What I comprehend, Reeves replied, is that you underestimated us. a common failing among those who confuse technological advantage with superiority. The collective has made demands without respect, threatened without provocation, and assumed compliance without consent. These are not the actions of an advanced civilization, but of bullies who have forgotten that true strength requires wisdom. The human commander threatened to destroy any collective vessel that approaches their colonies. Thrix continued. Given their demonstration of unexpected capabilities, we should consider withdrawal until the Directorate. We will do no such thing. Vrax interrupted, his harmonic tones shifting to the register that indicated absolute authority. The Directorate was explicit. Human expansion must be contained now, before they develop further. If they have already achieved field penetration, it only confirms the urgency of our mission. He manipulated the tactical display, highlighting the 3 human vessels now in formation around Proxima. 3 ships, regardless of their capabilities, cannot stand against our fleet. Deploy in standard suppression formation and prepare the nullifier batteries. We will resolve this quickly. As Vrax issued orders, light years away on the bridge of the UES Reckoning, Commander Reeves was assembling her senior officers in the tactical planning room. The holographic representation of the collective fleet hung in the center of the space, 12 massive vessels arranged in a formation that intelligence analysts had dubbed the Hammer. They're preparing for orbital bombardment, Lieutenant Commander Jackson observed. Standard procedure for them when dealing with what they consider primitive civilizations. Because it usually works, Reeves replied. Their technological advantage has made them complacent. They expect submission, not counterattack. Dr. Chen manipulated the display, highlighting the largest vessel. This appears to be their command ship based on communication patterns. Our analysis suggests it carries a device the collective calls a nullifier. Essentially a massive EMP weapon designed to disable all technology on a planetary scale. So they're not here to negotiate, Lieutenant Quan said grimly. They never were, Reeves confirmed. The collective operates on a principle of technological determinism. Species are classified and controlled based on their development stage. We were designated Category 3, permitted limited interplanetary travel, but restricted from certain technologies deemed destabilizing. Like quantum computing and neural interfaces, Chen added, the very technologies that give the Reckoning its edge. Reeves nodded, which is why they moved against us the moment they detected these systems on our colony world. They don't want peers. They want client species that know their place. She adjusted the tactical display, highlighting the 3 human ships. We're outgunned by conventional metrics. The collective vessels carry enough firepower to reduce this entire system to slag, but they have weaknesses they don't even recognize. The Prometheus Protocol, Chen said quietly. Reeves met his gaze steadily. Yes, it's time. In the depths of the Reckoning, a specialized compartment housed what appeared to be standard acceleration couches. But as 6 crew members, all volunteers with exceptional psionic sensitivity scores, were secured into position, it became clear these were far more sophisticated devices. Chief Engineer Torres supervised the connection of neural interfaces that extended from the couches like delicate silver webs. Remember your training, she told the volunteers. When the system activates, visualize the construct exactly as practiced. Don't try to control everything. Flow with the collective consciousness. Commander Reeves entered, moving to stand before the team. What you're about to attempt has never been done in combat. The simulations can only approximate the experience. Are there any questions before we proceed? One of the volunteers, Lieutenant Emerson, spoke up. Commander, if the integration succeeds, what are the orders? Reeves met his gaze steadily. Disable, don't destroy. Unless absolutely necessary. We want to demonstrate our capabilities, not annihilate their fleet. The collective needs to understand that humanity must be engaged as equals, not subjects. She surveyed the volunteers one last time. What you're doing today isn't just about protecting our colony. It's about defining humanity's place among the stars. Good luck. As Reeves returned to the bridge, The tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly. The collective fleet had accelerated toward Proximab, their formation tightening as they prepared for synchronized orbital insertion. "Collective vessels entering weapons range in 2 minutes," reported Lieutenant Kwan. "They're charging what appear to be primary weapon systems. Bring us into position between their fleet and the colony," Reeves ordered. "Signal the Indomitable and Thermopylae to execute Maneuver Theta." The 3 human ships accelerated, positioning themselves as a barrier between the advancing collective forces and the vulnerable colony below. On conventional scanners, it would appear suicidal. 3 vessels against 12 much larger opponents.